Before Crippin, Part 7. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In prison, I was reading so much that you couldn't have ordinary conversations with just anybody. So I wanted to let people know the things that I was reading so that they could have the conversations with me about it when they receive what I write. So I remember seeing a pamphlet that some Shia brothers had written in a prison down in San Diego, and it was written real finely with their own hand, and it gave me an idea. Man, you could write your own articles. So I started doing that. One of the things that I was trying to really pull away from at the time was old homies running into me, and they first thing that they want is the love that you used to give them when you was banging. So I started putting my picture on it, and I just would flood the yards with literature. I would put it on the blackboards. One day, a brother from Villain named Lubo came to me. No, he was talking to my bunkie. I was in the dorm, and he asked my bunkie, TB from Bounty Hunter. He said, who wrote this right here? He said, oh, my bunkie wrote that. He said, tell him to come here. So he came in the dorm. He said, hey, somebody want to holler at you outside. So I go out. He was like, man, you thumper? I told him, like, my name, that used to be me. My name is Jamal. He was like, yeah, I know. He said, man, I need to holler at you, man. He said, I got to tell you some stuff that's going to blow your mind. I was like, what? He said, man, I started the 5-6 villains. And he said, I used to live down in Family Swan Hood. He said, them fools down there was tripping off of you. He said they had some busters in their hood, and they used to want to rob them. So they would have me to put a flag over my face and rob their homies and say that I was Thumper from 9-7. And I looked at him. I said, you serious? He was like, yeah. And so I told him what happened, how they, Sticks and B-Rat and all them got in, had a meeting with the police, because at the time me and Sticks was having problems. And one time he caught me slipping on Century and Avalon, and his car pulled up on the side of the store. I was across the street at the phone booth, and I looked up and I saw him. So he was creeping, coming towards Avalon. So I told my girl at the time, I said, hey, I got to go. So I let the phone hang, and he got in the middle of the street and started dumping. So I knew that it's hard to hit a moving target. So I was going in and weaving in and out of the trees that's lined up off of Avalon till I got to the field, and I took off. And so he told me, he said, man, you and that fool had something going like that? I said, me and him was personal. So him and B-Rat had a conversation that's on one of my videos on testimonies. And they went to the police and pinned the shooting on me. And I told him how they did all this, and he was looking at me. He was like, man, I believe it. He said, because they was terrified of you. He said, man, and they were scared to go to the store at night. And so I was like, all right, man. So I walked back in the dorm. And back in the day when I was banging, that would have been like a trophy for me. But now it just showed me how the devil behind the scenes is doing things that you had no control over. You know how many people probably think you have done things that you didn't do just because people fear you or hate you that much? And when I sit back and I thought about the fact that a lot of people who knew me in the penitentiary are the people who were learning to hate me on the streets. So a lot of people I came to know that were bloods, that used to be enemies and so forth, they would all tell me like, man, we didn't know who you were, or, we heard this, or people say you did that, but they got to know me. I would even walk the yard with them sometimes, but I wouldn't talk about gang stuff. We would talk about, in prison, Afrocentric philosophy is very deep, and people like to hear about black culture. So sometimes I'm a lover of history. I would, talk about different topics with brothers, and we would just spend the yard. And it's a blessing that, since I've been home, I've run into so many different people from the penitentiary that had it been 30 years earlier, they would have killed me. But it's just another reflection of how much literature and expressing your knowledge for others out of your own free time is a contribution not only to your life, but it also shows them that they have potentials that only need to be zapped to get them on the right path. I took a writer's course, and I was spending my money, that I was working from a prison job, making a measly, 13 cents an hour, because I wanted what I had to say to be professional, like the things that I was reading. And the more I learned from this course, my vocabulary became, very proper, especially in prison, because you're trying to stand out. A lot of people claim to be innocent, but much about their character and the way that they speak makes people question whether that's true or not. For me, I was trying to basically wake people up to things that I would have never learned had I not come to prison. But learning can also bring you enemies. When I was in many prisons, people were getting transferred, and you don't never really want to take leadership positions, especially in prison, because they're political. As soon as you become an emir on a yard or anything like that, the first thing that happens is that people that are playing two sides of the fence can involve your religious group in a war. Sounds sad, but it's true. And I was put in a position several times where I had to become an emir on the yard. But the fact is, so many people knew me that most of those incidents that normally took place in other prisons, these people would come to me and say, "Hey man, you got to do this, got a drug habit." So I would be able to talk to them. Or they'd come to me and say, "Hey man, such and such out there, on the basketball court, getting into this and that. You need to talk to him, man. He gonna start a racial riot or something." People come to you out of respect. So, like I say, go to prison, learn. If you come out of prison and you're the same person that you were when you went in there, the only thing waiting on you is another bid or a spot in the graveyard. Assalamu alaikum.